In this video, we'll be reacting to Americans experiencing Belgian culture shocks. I'm an American who has been living abroad and traveling the world for nearly 2 years, and since most of those 2 years were spent in the Netherlands, not only will I be comparing America to Belgium, I'll also be comparing the Netherlands to Belgium.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Cody LeBeau, and through a series of very strange events, I am a redneck abroad all over Europe, currently in Brussels. Now, I did just drop off turnip truck last night. However, I have learned a fair bit about the Belgian people so far. Number one, this ain't Paris. You ain't got to pretend like you know how to speak French. Just go up and say howdy to folks. They seem to be generally agreeable no matter which language you speak. A lot of this probably has a lot to do with the fact that Belgium is kind of a nation between nations. Like there's France, there's Germany, there's the Netherlands. It's all right next to them. I mean, there's Luxembourg if you want to count it. Why not? Now, no better is this demonstrated than in the two distinct groups of people that live in the nation of Belgium. Up north, you have the Flemish. They speak Dutch. Down south, you got the Walloons. They speak French. Do not confuse those two groups of people. I learned that early. They are very, very different. There is like this Mason-Dixon line between the two of them. Incredibly friendly. Don't screw that up. As far as food goes, it's not just waffles. They also really like French fries here. I didn't know that was a thing. But also, like, they have like these sausages, a bunch of different kinds of sausages, chicken, beef, whatever. But they crumble these little things on. It's delicious. You know, I don't believe I've heard a single lick of English that wasn't spoken directly to me since I dropped off that train. I don't hate it. And here's a small one. If you're talking to somebody, don't put your hands in your pockets. I don't know why. They think it's rude. Might be a bit of a hot take too, but I do believe Belgium has the best chocolate of anywhere I've been in Europe so far. Now, here in Brussels, they do actually have a mascot. It goes by the name of Mannequin Piss. Now, I don't know if that's a mistranslation, but I'm pretty sure it means exactly what I think it means. Have you ever been to Brussels before? Is there anything that I cannot miss, that I absolutely have to see? Why don't you let me know in these comments right here. Have you never been to Brussels, but you've always wanted to see something or other? I'll try to go find it. Also, let me know in the comments right there. Love each and every one of y'all. Thank you to all of my new followers. I'll see y'all soon.
So if you're a Belgian person watching this, first of all, I just want to express my wholehearted gratitude for the invention of French fries. Thank you, thank your ancestors, thank everyone who is Belgian, who has been to Belgium, thank whoever created Belgium. Thank you, because French fries are just absolutely top tier elite. Now, I have been to Belgium. I've been to Antwerp in particular, but I've never been to the French-speaking part of Belgium, which he said he's in Brussels. I don't know if Brussels is French-speaking or Flemish speaking. Let me know in the comments if Brussels is French or Dutch speaking, or if it's maybe a mixture of both. And he said that they have a pretty defined boundary between the two. That's something that I wouldn't have expected, because in my head, I sort of expected Belgium to be like a spectrum, where maybe the closer you get to the Netherlands, of course, people are going to speak Dutch. The closer you get to France, people are going to speak French primarily. But in between, it would kind of be a gray area, and most people would be able to speak both languages pretty fluently. But I guess that's not really the case. What I want to know is, how did they even define that boundary? How did they determine which part would be French speaking and which part would be Dutch speaking? Because I have no idea the history behind Belgium or why that may be the case. Now, let's go ahead and check out some of these comments right here. This first comment says, Belgian fries. The French really screwed us with that one. I need to know the story behind this. Why are they called French fries? Because I know they were invented in Belgium. I already knew that before even watching this video or reading that comment, but I never really heard the story of why they're called French fries instead of Belgian fries. I'm not gonna lie though, to be fair, French fries does kind of have a better ring to it, but we have to give credit where credit's due. The Belgians are the ones who created them. So what's the story behind that? If you're Belgian, or if you know the history behind that, let me know in the comments. This comment right here said, I live in Belgium, but in the German-speaking part. We exist too, but nobody notices us. So I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really know there was a German-speaking part of Belgium. So that's 3 official languages in that small country that's around the same size as the Netherlands. That's pretty wild. I think the only other country in Europe that I'm aware of that has that many official languages that are all completely different. So we're not talking about Spanish and then, what is it, Catalonian or Catalans, whatever it's called. And then you have the Valencian dialect. We're talking about 3 completely different languages that belong to 3 completely different groups. I think Switzerland is the only other country that has that. But let me know if I'm wrong about that in the comments. But to me, that's a really cool part about Belgium, is that you have so many different official languages.
I'm an American immigrant in Belgium, and I'm going to tell you about things that I like more in Belgium than in the US. I live in West Flanders, by the way, on the coast, so that might give you some perspective, as some of these will not relate to the entire country. Number 1 is the safety. I feel so safe here, especially I live in a very small town, and I think it's just a great place to raise kids. It's so safe. Like, there's no fear about kids getting kidnapped or guns or anything like that. I just have never felt the sense of safety. And when I go back to the US, there's always this impending doom that there could be some type of public shooting or something like that. And it's the sad reality of it. But yeah, I feel so much safer here, and I do not take that for granted. Might be different if you live in Brussels or something like that. Obviously, having free healthcare is absolutely amazing. In the US, 40% of bankruptcies are from medical bills. So, yeah, enough said. People in Belgium tend to speak over 2, 3, 4 languages, sometimes even more than that. And I think it's super impressive and admirable. And I definitely want my kids to be raised speaking, multiple languages, but that's just not something that happens in the US. In the US, most people just speak English or maybe one other language. I love the cycling culture, and a lot of cities in Belgium are super walkable, if not bikeable. And I think it's just a really happy and healthy way to live, just biking around. I bike around my town a lot. You can bike to get groceries. It's just so much better than being in a car-reliant society like the US is. I'm from Los Angeles, which is an absolutely massive city, and obviously the US is huge, so I love being in a small country. Not only is it pretty easy to get to other cities within Belgium and explore Belgium, but also you're in such close proximity to so many other countries in Europe, and that's just something we don't have in the US. The only close places to us are Mexico and Canada, and even then, they can be hours flying away. The train and public transportation system is unbelievable. I know you guys complain about it a lot because sometimes there's strikes or train delays, but compared to the US, it is phenomenal. Couple quick ones. I love the Christmas markets, I love the beer culture, and I love Belgian waffles. Liège waffles, though, they are better. I like that Belgians in general, pretty much everyone cares about the environment. In the US, sadly, that's just not the case. There are a lot of people who just don't care about the environment and the future. I have a bunch more in part 2. It's already up.
Okay, I want to add to my expression of gratitude earlier on about the French fries. I also want to thank you, as a Belgian person, for Belgian waffles. I haven't had one in so long, and I have no means of getting one here in Vietnam. So as soon as we touch down in Europe, we are getting a Belgian waffle. Now, on to the actual societal differences. Safety. So she mentioned something very interesting in there, which was that if you live in Brussels, it might be a little bit different safety-wise than living in other parts of Belgium. She mentioned that she's in the Flemish part. Now, that's fascinating because I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube, haven't really watched them, but I've seen them saying that Brussels is a pretty dangerous city in this day and age. And this could be for a multitude of different reasons. I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to fill in why they think that's the case. But I don't really have a dog in that fight. What I do know is that I am almost positive that if you look up the statistics, the crime statistics of a place like Brussels, and you compare them to some of the more dangerous cities in the US, it's going to be a night and day difference. Now, that's not to invalidate Belgian people's experience in Brussels, because if you're a victim of crime, you're a victim of crime. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. But I think it's more of a relative issue where people in Belgium, and I would say the Netherlands as well, are not really accustomed to crime in the same way that most Americans are. Of course, crime left unchecked will always evolve and eventually it will reach that point. So in that sense, it is good to acknowledge that the crime rates have increased. At least I'm assuming they have, based on what I've heard about Brussels and some of the larger cities in the Netherlands as well. But let's talk about some of the positives of being in Belgium, because look, just like the Netherlands, I believe Belgium is unequivocally a better place to be than the US. I truly believe that for a multitude of different reasons. For starters, the healthcare system. The healthcare system is much more supportive of people who actually need it. And this is because people as a whole, the societies, Dutch and Belgian societies, collectively understand that healthcare is something that everyone is going to need at some point in their lives. And so they're willing to pay the price up front in order to benefit from it on the back end. And also, they're willing to pay that price up front so that their fellow citizens can benefit from it on the back end or the front end as well. A large swath of Americans do not seem to understand this concept. It's an every man for himself mentality, and if you actually need healthcare, then you are SOL unless you are rich. And if you're rich and you need extensive healthcare, the likelihood is that you won't be rich for much longer. Aside from healthcare, you also have public transit and walkability/bikeability. Look, I have beat this topic to death on my channel, but that is for a good reason. It's because you don't understand how blessed you are to be in Belgium, to be in the Netherlands, to be in a place where walkability and biking are the norm, until you go somewhere where that is not the case. And I'm not gonna lie, I almost feel like you have to leave Europe overall in order to actually see what that means. Because even less walkable parts of the Netherlands, or I'm assuming Belgium as well, are still much more walkable than your average place in the US. And even in many parts of Southeast Asia, specifically Thailand and Vietnam, as the two countries that I have been traveling through for the past 6 months. And also, on the topic of traveling, the fact that you have access to all of these different countries, and this is something that is very specific to the Netherlands and Belgium, I feel like, is that not only are the countries both very small, so you can quickly be in another country, it takes, 3.5, 4 hours to drive across the whole country, but you're also very centrally located. So whether you're driving or flying somewhere, it's going to be a relatively short trip no matter where in Europe you're going, or really anywhere in the world, because Europe itself is very centrally located within the world.
Guys, the trash can in Antwerp talks to you and thanks you when you throw something out. Watch.
Oh, merci. Razende goeie mensen.
What the heck? Traveling around Europe never fails to surprise me. Every country always has something surprising like this, but that's one thing I can say I've never seen in America, a talking trash can. We definitely don't have those.
We most certainly do not have those, and if my memory serves me correctly, they don't have those in the Netherlands either. So that must be a Belgium specific thing right there, the talking trash cans. And it says that she's in Antwerp, but I did not see that in Antwerp either. So maybe it's just that specific trash can or something. I don't know. This person in the comments said, he said in an Antwerp accent, "Thanks, you are a good person." I thought I heard something about goede mensen or something like that. In fact, this person right here said, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that honestly. I just see goeie mens. So I don't know if that's supposed to be some mixture of Dutch and French or what's going on there. Again, I don't really know how you define that line between French and Dutch, but what I do know is that this right here is one of the most futuristic and eccentric things that I have ever seen.